All right. I know you want some time.
Yeah, I'd love some time.
Well, we'll just see how it plays out. I don't really. Do you have anything?
I can.
Yeah, we'll just see. I don't know.
You know how that
It
goes
bubbles
with
up, yeah.
All right. Go, Carl.
So yesterday I walked into my second church service and just walking in the door and I see my pianist, she's also my administrative council chair, and I say, "Hi Bev, how's it going?" She says, "Oh, it's going okay." I said, "How's it really going?" She's like, "I think you need to have maybe some counseling time with Ricky." Okay, not sure what's going on
Who
here.
is this, the brother?
No.
Different Ricky.
Very, very confusing. Okay, good.
No, there's not a Ricky among them. It's Rocky, Randy, Rusty,
Oh.
and Ronnie.
Wow.
Okay.
Sorry.
No Ricky, funny
No
enough.
Ricky.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So I go back and I'm talking with some other people, and she's like, "No, you need to talk to him now." And she pushes me into my office with Ricky 10 minutes before service starts. I'm like, "Okay, we're doing this now." And I sit him down, and Ricky, he's a really big guy, probably about 6'4", 350 pounds or so, and he just starts bawling. I didn't notice at this point, but I did notice pretty quickly his wife wasn't there with him. As far as I know, she's fine, but they're having some marital difficulties. They've been married for 39 years this upcoming week, and he starts by saying, "I just don't know what to do. I haven't been happy for 39 years this upcoming Saturday," which I think might have been some hyperbole. They're having issues. She's yelling at him. Something that's happened in their life in the last year and a half is he had a heart attack and he had to have major heart surgery, and now he's at home all the time because the doctor won't release him to do work, and he'll never be able to do work he used to do. This giant guy can't pick up more than 15 pounds, and so his wife is getting on him. They don't have any way to be apart from each other, and he said she just started pushing me. She punched me in the face, and after 8 or 9 times, you can only take so much. I put a knife up to her throat, and he just kept going on. I put a knife up to her throat, and then I dropped it because I don't want to be that man anymore. I've spent 38 years being that man, and I'm not going to be that person anymore. And he starts talking about all this stuff with his wife, and I had to break it up. I said, "Okay, let's talk about this after church." So we have church, and then we go back to my office.
Good luck thinking about your sermon. Yeah.
I was fine. But yeah, it was an insane thing just to happen, not being ready for it yesterday.
Sure.
And there's a lot more about it, but I'm having trouble putting it all into words at once because it all came really quickly.
So what are you needing from us? What would be helpful?
Well, I'll tell you how I reacted, and maybe some help on that sort of reaction. I tried using reflective listening. I said, "Okay, so you sound really frustrated about this. That's understandable." And he said, "Yeah, I'm frustrated, and I don't know what to do. That kept coming up. I kept saying, 'Well, what have you done?' 'I've done everything.'" "Okay, so what do you want to do?" "Well, I've tried everything. I'm open to suggestions." So I told him there's only one person that we can work on in this relationship. I can't fix Debbie from here, especially since she's not here, and we can't fix other people. We can only work on you. And so we talked about ways that he could be less anxious about things and continue to try to change himself for the better. And places he could go. He says, "Well, I go to the back room in the trailer and I go to the washing machine where I got some tools and stuff. And then I go back out and she's just as mad at me. She says, 'Did you enjoy putting me in timeout?' when he walks away from an argument. That's what she says afterwards. And then things escalate between them again. I said, "Well, what do we do in this moment?" So I taught him about breath prayers, which might be helpful. I taught him fogging a little bit, which I thought might be helpful. And then after we got off the phone, I called Bev because she'd gotten more stuff that week than I had. I had no idea anything was wrong until Sunday morning when she refused to go to church in the same car with him, said he had to get a ride, said he's stealing her friends. They are both, and I talked to Bev, and Bev says, I think Debbie has some sort of mental illness going on. She's really, really paranoid. She says that we've stolen Ricky Ricky stole me and Pam from her. We were his friends first, and I've tried to explain to her that we're both of their friends, and so in one way I'd like some feedback on what I did, how things went with Ricky, because at the end of our conversation after church, I dropped him off back at his house with his wife, not knowing how that's going to turn out. I haven't heard anything back from that yet. But also, how can I be helpful to him and Debbie especially if she's having issues with her mental health, but she doesn't want to recognize that she might be having some issues with mental health. And to what extent should I just not pay attention to it, and to what extent should I worry about it?
Do you have,
Because somebody could die in that situation.
I'm trying to think, I want to phrase this the right way, and not just say, because we're not supposed to give advice. But are there counseling resources that you have at your disposal?
Like my wife?
Your wife could be one of them, but like counselors you know that you could
I
say.
called her and asked Katie where I could send them because they're very poor. Like if I was to refer them somewhere, I'd have to figure out where to refer them. Katie said, well, most of the cases for the interns and residents where I'm at are all Medicaid and Medicare. See if they have Medicaid and Medicare and how that could possibly work out. The other issue with Debbie and referring her somewhere is she seems to be paranoid about people thinking she's crazy. And so I don't know if she would even accept going to see a counselor.
So
And neither of them have any place to go. If they split up, one of them would be homeless.
did he ask for any options going past getting driven home?
And I told him I wasn't going to be able to fix everything in one
Sure.
day. Nor could I fix Debbie for him.
Right.
And I tried, and I talked with Bev, who'd gotten some more of the story, and she'd been talking to Ricky, and I tried talking to Rusty, who Debbie called him and talked to him for an hour. I still haven't heard back out of Rusty yet, because I'm trying to get the whole story here. Ricky doesn't seem to me to be really smart enough to manipulate well. So I can see there's probably a lot of truth in his story, even if he might have made himself sound like the good guy a little bit more than he probably was.
Sure.
But he still pointed out terrible things he'd done.
And so Bev is not Ricky's wife.
No, Debbie
is Ricky's wife. Okay. And the relationship with Bev is they're just friends?
Yeah, they're a family that the church in the past used to help out when they were in need.
Okay.
And over the last year, they've started coming to our church. I did the verbatim on
We did
it.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm wondering.
Rich people's problems are so much easier.
But just as a potential resource for low-income people, Community Service Board probably has some, County Community Service Board probably has some counseling resources.
Okay.
Yeah, so is there a possibility that you could see both of them together?
Maybe. And for all I know, this all could blow over in a week. I don't know them well enough to know if this is a pattern of theirs or not. If this is something that just happened to happen after 38 years together.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I guess, my question would be, how do I find that out?
I can understand probably where the anxiety is stemming from, is they're literally together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
And I can't
So I guess-
imagine how my relationship with my wife would be if I was with her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So you can't retire together?
No, well, I'm gonna have to find a job in retirement, is what I gotta do. I'm gonna work my way into the grave.
So how can you find out, whether this is a pattern of theirs, whether this is, not that it's a great pattern?
I need to work on staying connected with them. I think there is a possibility to see them both at once. I don't want to try seeing them both at once until I've had an opportunity to talk to Rusty about what Debbie said to him. Because they're trying to pick sides and get friends over one another. And everybody involved has said, we are not going to do that.
They're triangulating, you said?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The only thing I'm thinking about with the two of them together is you got an opportunity to use the triangle in its positive
Yeah.
form,
Mm-hmm.
in which they address you about
Yeah.
each other, but they can overhear.
Yeah. Well, one thing, my worry about all of that is and I need to find this out better for myself. I might be making an assumption. I don't think I am. I don't think Debbie is going to be open to any of it. She was really upset. She aired her issues with Rusty for an hour, and she was really upset with Ricky for talking to Bev about their issues. And she apologized to Bev on the phone and said, "I'm sorry that Ricky brought you our problems." And then she called Bev later and said, "I'm really sorry Ricky brought our problems to you." And he tells me, and I've heard of different ways that she's paranoid about what other people think and feel about them, like an unhealthy amount of paranoid. Like if she continues one of her paranoia issues, the police will pick her up and take her to jail.
So, realistically, what do you imagine that you can accomplish in this situation?
I just don't want anybody to die.
Okay. How? If that's your bottom line,
Yeah.
if that's basic for you, what do you imagine would be the way to be able to accomplish that?
I think at some point it is important to use that healthy triangling method. I think I would need to find a way to do it without making it seem like I'm doing some sort of counseling session with them. If those problems are really as close to the surface as they are, they'll come up pretty naturally, whether I'm there or not. So
So I'm making a
It
pastoral
would-
visit to their
yeah.
home.
yeah, that'd probably be the best way to do it.
So what would your anxiety be going into that?
My main anxiety would be thinking that Debbie thought Ricky asked me to come. And whether she would shut down just because I was there.
Is there a way that you could make her feel like it was, not that manipulation's the best, but is there a way that you could make her think it's her idea, or,
She has it up to say.
yeah, she has a say?
I don't know if there is, because she won't come to church if Ricky's coming to church right now.
Do they have a phone?
They have a home phone, and they have a cell phone, but I don't know who has either, because they share their cell phone.
You can always just ask to talk to her
I could.
and say, is Didn't see you at church on Sunday. I was wondering if I could
She
stop by.
knows that Ricky and I talked.
Oh, bummer.
She called at the end of Ricky and I's conversation to see when he was coming home or where he was. And he said, I've been talking to Pastor Carl. And he hung up and said, oh, I don't know how that's going to go when I get home. So she knows we talked.
Well, that's probably a good thing. I
Yeah.
don't want to be conniving.
And just can't help wondering.
The best thing I think is probably just going to be to show up there
Mm-hmm.
and tell him that God told me to come see him.
Following in the nobody wanted to die thing, is you, I imagine what I heard is they're in a trailer,
Mm-hmm.
so smaller space.
Yeah, single wide.
You going to visit two people who are clearly anxious and volatile in a closed space.
That doesn't bother me.
Sure, but is there anything differently you might want to do to prepare to enter that kind of space than if you're just to go visit?
No.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna go in a different area, and, there's a semi-public area like a Starbucks or a Denny's or whatever.
Mm-hmm. They don't drive, so I would have to go to their house to pick them up
Oh,
anyway.
okay. But that modulates behavior
Yeah.
a little bit,
Mhm.
and,
I think it will unless one party is paranoid. I worry about the mental health of Debbie from not just what I've heard from Ricky, but also from experiences Bev has actually had with her.
yeah. I wonder if there's a way, if she is paranoid, chances are this is not her first exacerbation of that.
No. So Ricky said, Carl, please don't tell anybody else this. And I can say this here because it's a more confidential area. He said, she's the reason our kids got taken away. I didn't even know they had kids. They've never mentioned their kids. Apparently her verbal abuse with the kids was so bad that they thought Ricky had molested the children. And they did a whole bunch of tests and tried to figure out if the kids showed signs of being molested, and they didn't. But they still lost touch with their kids over time because of all that, is what he says. I think she would have a different story. So there are instances where, I know of at least one other instance where her anger has come up there at his work that he can't work at anymore because the doctors won't sign off on it. She's called down there to one of his old supervisors to yell at her, and also tried to go in, and if she goes back there, she'll be arrested. Ricky told me this girl's daughter committed suicide, and then 3 weeks later, Debbie came in and said she wished she would have committed suicide with her kid.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
And apparently it's just an obsession she has to put this lady in her place. Even though Ricky hasn't worked there in over a year. And not because work won't let him work, it's because he can't work because of his physical condition. So I don't know what happened there to set her off. But
Well, maybe
so this isn't the first time stuff has popped up, I guess.
You think there's any, part of me would want to go back to Ricky, just talk to him and hear him and wonder with him, if things get really bad with her, what do you plan to do?
Yeah.
What can you do
Mm-hmm.
here? and maybe empower him to think about his own problems. He's already said, I've tried everything. Well, I imagine there's some things that maybe he hasn't tried that maybe he's been afraid to. So, I wonder, being able to say, okay, you've said the past and all these things haven't worked in the past. If things get really bad between you and her, what are you going to do? I mean, I really hear that you're kind of afraid of what might be around the corner. If that comes, what are you going to do?
Yeah. It's just a tough situation.
Yeah, I imagine that it is.
I would write a verbatim on it, but there was too much said for me to remember well.
It sounds very unfortunate.
But I can talk more about that later.
Yeah, so you need to.
Get out.
G.O.
Geo. Blow this popsicle stand.
All right. Well, have a good meeting with your DS.
Yeah.
And my DS.
Your DS and your DS? So both of them are there?
The Old Testament and New Testament.
Yeah. They prefer Hebrew Bible.
The Hebrew Larry.
Yeah.
That's funny.
The former and the latter.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll go. I thought of something. So, last week was vacation and it was so fun and so great. And Daniel and I went back to Smith Mountain Lake, so that's where I served before I came here. And we were excited to go back. It was like 10 times more emotional than I expected it to be. We drove into Alta Vista, which was where Daniel's church was and where we lived. And as we came into town, I just started crying. Like, I just wasn't expecting. Like, I knew we were going. We had planned on it, and I knew we were going to go back to our favorite sandwich shop, and we were meeting with the one of the staff members from Daniel's church who's clergy, and just going to meet and talk with him. We weren't letting anybody else know that we were in town, just him and then another clergy person in town who didn't get to come, but drove past the parsonage, and we cried. I cried, and I think it was really hard for Daniel too. And I think this week was really good, but we just really learned how much we don't like where we are. And just kind of the realization that I'm not really sure, like, what to even do about it, or how to even process it, or how to make it better where we are. And just kind of the frustration, like, I don't want to feel this way about where I am. And I think in my mind, and I think in Daniel's too, but I can't really speak for him, we didn't expect that at all. Like, we just thought we were gonna go back to Alta Vista and just be there and just enjoy this place that we like once lived. But it was just kind of like in our face all week how much, I think Daniel was expecting it more than I was, just how much we don't feel at home up here. And just kind of the stuckness of it all. And I guess what I would love help discerning is how do you just still thrive in the stuckness? Like, how do you just take your situation for what it is, and recognize, I don't know, like, I think if my dad were here, he would ask me, like, a million questions, like, well, could you get a new job, or what about this, or what about that, and I don't think there's anything I can do. I think I just have to be with it, and that just really sucks. Like, I wish that there was a solution, but I think Daniel and I have talked through, like, everything in our head, and it feels like we've just been given this season. And I just don't really know how to thrive in it. And I can articulate what frustrates me, and I'm thankful for it. I don't want to sound like I'm not thankful, but I don't know. It was just a weird vacation week. We came back, and like normally vacations energize me, and I'm like excited to get back to work, and you know, maybe not about everything, but there's like at least something I'm looking forward to. But I could have just stayed in that vacation forever, and not in the like way that you say, like, oh, I could like,
Keep bringing your future.
yeah, like keep bringing the drinks, like I could just lay on this beach forever, but like I just really, there's nothing that I wanted to come back to, and that was a weird feeling for me. And so then, you know, I asked myself the question, well, okay, if I'm saying there's nothing I can come back to that I want to come back to, what can I do to change that? You know, what can I do about my ministry? What can I do? And I think one thing I did discern was, well, also while we were away on vacation this week, Jim emailed everyone and was like, basically an email where he, again, is changing something about the structure or the way that I'm doing my job, and I think that...
He's changing your role again?
No, not my role, but like the way in which I do my role. Does that make sense? Like, I'm just gonna stay where I am, but there'll be, and it was for everyone, like all the ministry leadership teams. They went to some, if he could never go to another seminar in his life, I would be so happy. They went to some seminar on, I think it's The Cost of Discipleship, yes, by Phil Maynard. And so now, he and Angela think that that's the program that we should use for whatever we're doing here. And it's just exhausting. Like, I read that email and I just wanted to throw my phone across the room. Yeah, go ahead.
This may not be helpful, so please tell me if it's not.
Okay.
Why is Angela part of that decision?
Oh, because she went to the thing with him. I had the chance to go
Okay.
to this seminar, but I had too much to do at work that day that I couldn't go.
Sure.
So it was like an NLI thing. I had the chance to go and stuff. I know the Angel thing irked me a little bit, but then I was like, no, like reel it back. That's some stuff you just have to deal with on the side. But anyways, it's just, I think the whole change thing makes me feel even more like I don't have ownership in this game, that I'm being constantly asked to play, and the rules are constantly changing on me, and I feel like I have shared this with him, that I've shared this frustration of like nothing ever stays the same, it's constantly changing, and I know for my own self, it's the same thing I said earlier, I struggle when there's too much freedom, and I struggle when the rules are constantly changing, and yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm going to go into this meeting on Tuesday, and it's going to be like, oh, you planned all that? Well, now just unplan it, and we're going to do this instead, and I feel tired, and I haven't even worked there for like this will be my second year. I'll be finishing my second year.
Well, one of the things that I heard that's at least new information to me is that Daniel is also not happy where he is.
Super unhappy, yeah.
It's a tough change.
So are you guys feeling like you're victims of the Methodist itinerant system?
Yeah, definitely. And him, I think, more so than I mean, he articulates that he recognizes the reason he's frustrated is because he followed a pastor that's been there for 14 plus years, so anybody that's going to follow that pastor is just going to have to, if you look at like a metaphor of the fields, you're going to have to like clean the fields out and just till and stuff.
He's also finishing his second year, right?
Yeah, he's finishing his second year, and so all of the stuff he's doing is administrative, and nothing excites him, and it's just kind of crappy to know that you're the person that's just gonna till and not, maybe you get to plant seeds, but you're never gonna see any of that fruit. And like we all know that happens in ministry, but he had just gotten kind of done doing it in Lane and then got moved, and this is just a weird area to do ministry in. We had a wedding on Saturday with all of Daniel's, with like a lot of our friends in Richmond, and all of them kept everybody asked, how do you like Northern Virginia? And Daniel and I just got to the point where we don't like it, because these were our friends, so we felt like we could be honest with them. And Daniel just started saying during the wedding, he was like, in 3 years from now, which will make 5 years up here, he's like, 3 years from now, I want everybody to start praying that we move to Richmond. Like, he's like, and like, all of them were like, we're already praying for that. It's just hard. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So my question would be, all right, legitimately, nothing.
Right.
You're not going
nothing
to change
changed.
positions
Nope.
anytime
No.
soon. But it seems to me that sometimes feeling stuck and having a victim attitude or victim mentality are like this.
Yep.
So, so how can you, and I'm not going to bring Daniel on this, but how can you have less of the victim mentality? And I don't know what that looks like.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that we're here. Like I said, it's just how do you live in the stuckness without constantly complaining about being stuck? Because I don't want that. I don't think either of us want that. So I don't know what that looks like, other than maybe clinging more to the things that tether me to unstuckness. So
What would those be?
just continuing to seek friendship and community, and outside of work seeking that, and inside of work making sure that I'm making space for ministry that's just me, that Jim is never going to come in and tell me how to do congregational care. That's never going to be in discipleship. No seminar he goes to will probably